Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It is me, Mashir's Cameraman, and today I'm going to be doing a deep dive into Spider-Man Dead No More. So this is the first time I'm revisiting a fan film ever, really, but I'm planning on doing this with other fan films, including Nightwing, Rebirth, Spider-Man Prom Night, and Spider-Man in Quarantine. So we're beginning with Spider-Man Dead No More, mostly because this is recent. This released a week ago, I'd like to say. It was pretty recent. So before we get into it, it's going to be a scene-by-scene talk about. It's going to be talking a lot about the overall film, and yeah. Besides that, I don't think I have anything else to say besides, if you haven't already seen the trailer for my own fan film, Spider-Man and Kingpin Time, go do that now. Let's get into the video. So the first scene is a Mysterio sequence with, what's it called? With, Ben Reilly, sorry. So Ben Reilly meets Warren, continues to find out that he's a clone, and it's a really interesting opening sequence because you can see how much Ben's hurting that he's not real, and he thinks he's real. So it's a really cool sequence, in my opinion, at least. Then it is a sequence of a fight against Shocker, and we can really see Ben's character in this fight and Peter's character. Peter wants to kind of mentor Ben, while Ben feels discouraged that he isn't a real person. And you can feel that in his character and the way he fights. He tries to be his own person, yet he can't stop trying to do what the other people are doing. And you can see that even in just the way he fights. Besides that, I really like the choreography in this fight scene. I feel like it looks good as well. I think Shocker for the first time actually feels like an actual character. And I feel like also both Spider-Men fight well together. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say. Then we move on to a date sequence between Peter and Gwen. And it's this really awkward thing where he keeps changing his clothes and Gwen seems annoyed, which is kind of expected. Gwen is the character who's get into Spider-Man, and then when he does, she gets mad. So it's you can kind of see some very interesting things because the next few scenes are a lot of Gwen and Peter hanging out, and you can see a lot of their character in these sequences. Peter is very fun to watch. He's very charismatic, yet he cares about people, yet he always cares more about his city. And he thought it was really important to make sure that his city's safe. So and he wasn't even that late. He tries to defend himself. And Gwen, you can also see in this sequence, is written as a character who's I want you to be Spider-Man, but I also want you to be with me, and I want you to balance those two. Yet Peter's having a lot of trouble doing that. So it does actually make it very difficult for these characters because Peter is having a lot of trouble balancing those two lives. And you see that a lot in his character. So now we're going to move on from that scene, but you can see that they do like being together. Gwen and Peter do not hate each other yet. But you can see why they start getting mad at each other from just these earlier sequences. They're not the same as they were in the last film. Then we get a few scenes of Ben Reilly not being able to sleep because of the virus. I forgot what it's called, but it is the virus that kills you. So he is waking up from his sleep, and he is getting headaches, and he's annoyed that because he's believing that he's just a clone, that he isn't actually Eric Riley. Eric Riley is dead. So you can see that really in just his performance, and compared to someone like Peter, who doesn't have any standout things, you can really see with Ben how much he's actually hurting. I'm not saying Peter's bad, but he isn't given so many standout performances that Ben is getting, currently at least. Then we get a scene of Warren trying to resurrect Harry Osborn, because you can see how much, and this is when we get a lot for Warren, you can see how much he really cares about Harry, how Harry was more than just a friend to him, and you can see how much he hates that he keeps failing on bringing him back. So when you watch him trying to succeed and fail to save his life, and he keeps failing, you can see how much it pains him. Then we have a sequence of Peter hanging out on a rooftop and kicking some pizza off the ledge. It's a funny sequence. Like, it's not anything crazy. Like, it's kind of stupid, but, like, it's, like, perfect for Peter. And as I was saying, it's just so perfect for Peter's character because he is kind of a nerd. He isn't, like, fitting in with everyone. So you can see that when he's, like, just chilling and kicks it off the roof. And then we get a nice sequence of him getting fired from his job, getting stuff thrown at him, and then hiding in the stairwell, and where he's hearing all these mad comments, and the boss is being very mean to Peter, but you can see, again, Peter's, like, how charismatic his character is. And it's these scenes, like, where you just see his character, even though they're not, like, forwarding the plot in any way, like, he knocks down a tie and he hangs it back up. Like, even though it's not, like, benefiting the plot in any way, it teaches you so much about Peter's character that we don't really get too much in Best of Enemies or Responsibility. So you get so much from those amazing character scenes. Then we get our first sequence between Daredevil and Peter. And it's actually a really nice sequence. Peter's trying to be really nice to Matt. Matt probably knows this is Spider-Man. It's not really, like, too, like, difficult to see. It's pretty obvious. But it's a really fun sequence because you can tell that they enjoy playing the characters that they're playing. And Daredevil's actually really good in this. Like, he's a nice character, and you can also see that he looks blind. Like, he plays the character kind of like how Charlie Cox plays it. It doesn't feel like, oh, he's just Daredevil. You can kind of see, like, his role there. Then we get another scene of Peter and Gwen talking, and this is another scene where you get a further their development. You see Peter being really nice and trying to be nice and being, like, making jokes and stuff, but Gwen is just so fed up with him. And if you are the type of person who's, like, really annoyed with this type of stuff, you might not be a huge fan of Gwen in this film. Personally, I don't mind it too much. I think it's okay, but I feel like Gwen is like, oh, you're Peter, I want you to be Spider-Man, but then doesn't like when he's being Spider-Man. So it's an interesting thing, but of course you can see that this is what Sean and the team wanted to happen because they wanted them to break up. But it's like a kind of, but again, it's supposed to be difficult to watch. It's not supposed to be like a fun scene, which is okay. Then we get another sequence of Warren, and we see him talking to the Scarlet Spider. I really like that because I really like the idea of Warren, like, having this, like, clone of Peter. And you get a lot of Warren's development. And this also adds to the mystery of this, the first time we find out that there's a clone of Peter. So this is just the beginning of this mystery that's slowly growing. There's not too much to that scene that needs to be spoke about. But then we have another scene of Ben Reilly hurting his head. And you can see that this is the virus hurting him. And then he ends up murdering these two people. And it's a really, like, disgusting sequence. It isn't a fun sequence to watch. It's a lot of scraping, it's a lot of slapping, it's a lot of clawing, a lot of blood. But you can see how Ben thinks he's a monster because of him hurting people, and which is completely fair. But it's a really, like, difficult sequence to watch, but you can see a lot of Ben's character with it, sometimes being him being a monster, and sometimes it's him being normal. And you see a lot of his character in this scene, and even though it's a scene that forwards a plot, you have so much of his emotion in that scene, which is something very difficult to capture in a film. And then we move on to our next sequence, him trying to hide the virus on his neck, and yeah. And then they talk, and then this is the creepy presentation sequence with the really fun classical music with all the really bad camera quality with the blood, and I'm framing Spider-Man for murder. So this is definitely one of my favorite scenes in the film because I really like how unsettling it is. because, again, this entire film is supposed to be very unsettling, but this scene in specific has all this blood with the bad camera quality with Spider-Man. So this scene really sets up the plot, and I remember when I first watched this, it was really unsettling. Like, I really did not enjoy watching the sequence because of how it made you feel so uncomfortable. So, I really like the sequence, and it also sets up the villain of the Scarlet Spider very well. I think that's Scarlet Spider, at least, because of how violent and bloody it is with the bad camera quality. And you see how Gwen reacts and how Peter reacts to it. And it's such a great sequence. And then we get a bit of JJ in it, which is fun. Then we see a sequence of Spider-Man murdering someone. Because, again, they look exactly like they don't have different suits yet. So we don't know which is which. And the two Peters have a good fight. Then one swings away. And then Daredevil and Spider-Man have what is actually a very long fight and then talk. But of course you can see that this is to set up future things in their phases and things like that. But again, you see a lot of these three characters' development. You see a fun sequence with Daredevil. You get a cool sequence with the villain. You get a bit of the villain's development. And then you see a lot more with Peter. Again, you can see, not really development, but you can see how much his character, you can see so much of his character in it. And it's something that most fan films don't know how to capture, but this one does. It captures his feel very well. And then one of my favorite sequences in this film is next, when Ben and Peter go out in the back, and they have a really good talk. And again, we kind of hint at Ben not liking being a monster, obviously, but this is when we really get to hear it, when Ben's like, I don't want to be a monster, when he actually says it. And yeah, it's a really powerful conversation because you can see Peter really wanting to help his friend, but he can't. And then we have Ben, who really just wants to be normal. So these two, and this really also grows their characters and their friendship together. So that's really one of the best sequences in the film. Then we go to the house where they are talking to this person. I don't really know who it is, but I actually do really like it how like, again, it feels, it's like, he's like, look, you shouldn't be here. They get it, then I don't think they get attacked, and then Gwen gets attacked. And they both get attacked, like, at the same time. It's a trap. So it's a really good sequence, because you can see again, this entire film's supposed to be unsettling, but this is one of the most, like, oh, this is a trap. And you can really feel that in these two people, and he's like, oh my god, I know who you are. And then they have a really good fight and then Gwen gets mysteriously attacked by someone in a suit. And this is what actually makes Gwen break up with Peter. And it's a really, like, it's like an actually pretty, like, weird sequence, because most fan films don't go for this, like, murder mystery type vibe. I don't really think it's like a murder mystery, but like more like this, like, really, like, like a mystery, but it goes for it, and it does it very well. You can even see how much of a monster he is, and when Peter dies, like, the fake one dies, and things like that. And in Gwen's performance, Gwen's, like, so scared of Peter, but you can also see how much Gwen just doesn't like Peter in some of those earlier sequences. So it isn't, like, so unpredictable that they break up. It was pretty obvious. Like, I thought she was going to die, personally, but whenever I see Gwen, I'm like, she's dying in this film. But I think Gwen's going to die in Back to Basics, so whatever. But I really liked this sequence, because I think when they're, like, kind of hinting at it, is, like, I like it, but I feel like this is a perfect reason for Gwen to break up with Peter. And you can see Gwen, a bit of her character in this, but you can see a lot of Peter's character. How Peter didn't do it. Peter's being framed for this, yet his entire life is crumbling before him. And it's just the start of what's happening to him. Then we get a sequence of Warren. You can see how much pain he's in, and then you get Ben Reilly coming and talking to him. And this is when we learn a lot about the virus. Like, we didn't really get too much of the virus until now, but this is when we really learned what the virus is. And yeah, the virus actually like starts to feel very menacing. Like, it feels like a real threat. And I really like that part. And you kind of see a bit of how much he wants to save it, but he doesn't really get up to that. Because now we have what I like to call the trailer fight, where they're in the meadow and the two Peters are fighting. And I really like this fight. I think it's really cool idea to have two Peters fighting each other. And I really like how the choreography is. Like, you can see how they have a lot of the same moves. And they kind of can predict what each other are doing. And then Ben comes. And then Peter helps Ben into the alley. And you can see Ben's really shaken up by this. And he's being affected a lot by the virus. And then this is when Ben dies. This is one of the best sequences in the film. I love how Peter just lost Gwen. Yeah, and I love how Peter just lost Gwen, and now he can kind of tell that he's losing Ben. And Ben knows he's dying. Ben has been tired. He just lost the fight. And now he is going to die because the virus is taking him. So Peter lost Gwen, lost Ben, and is on his own. And even when he's like lying on the ground and Ben knows he's gone, Peter's like, you'll be okay, but Peter knows he isn't. And he's like trying to say, like, don't talk like that. And he's trying to hold back the tears and things like that. And then when he finally loses Ben, you can see the emotion in this performance. And this scene, before it was a good fan film, I loved the mystery aspect. But this scene is really what told me that this was an amazing fan film. Because of how great the performances are, how Ben dying, accepting his fate, that he isn't really Eric, and Peter really just feeling like he loses everything, he has lost everything, and how he literally just lies down next to Eric as the screen slowly fades out. And then we get this 3 days later sequence, and this is also perfect. And in my opinion, this is just as good as the scene, not as good, but almost as good as the scene before it. And it is this amazing montage of seeing Peter, like, depressed, missing Ben, and then Scarlet Spider also doing it. And they're both mad, and you can see the lighting of the blue on Peter and the red on the Scarlet Spider. We see both of their new costumes, and then we get this really great shot of the red on one face, the blue on another, and they're mirroring each other, so they're both clones, and it's such a great sequence. The music is amazing, and all of it plays, and it all just works together to see. You can see how much Peter's hurting from the loss of Ben and the loss of Gwen, and realizing that he can't give up on the city because of it. And then we had him just standing in the rain in his new suit, just ready to take on the Scarlet Spider. But first he meets Daredevil in the alleyway, and this is a fun sequence, but Daredevil gives him some really good advice. And again, I know Daredevil is in this film to set up future things. Daredevil being in this film doesn't make too many big changes to it. Like, if he was cut, nothing huge would change. But it's more like the fact that, like, it's to set up a big Daredevil project, which I would love to see. Which, it's pretty obvious that's what they're leading to. And then we get Peter in the final fight, really, in this abandoned area, fighting Scarlet Spider. And again, you can see how their fights are very different now. You can see their difference between each other. They're both dying from the same disease. They're both the same person. They're using the same attacks, and it's a really cool fight. You can see, like, all the knives being ripped out of his arms, and, like, you can see how much he's hurting, and the disease actually has this weird black streak, and it looks really, like, uncomfortable. And even though Sean, who plays Peter, is talking to himself in these sequences, it still looks so, like, good. Like, all these scenes with each other. And I've not much to say about the final fight. Like, it's great choreography, it's great like that, but again, we've gotten all the big character development that I kind of wanted to cover in this bigger dive into it. because the reason I'm doing this is to kind of like focus on more of those scenes, kind of be like, this is one scene, this is another scene, and really talk about everything, which I do really enjoy. So then we see Warren's death sequence, and Harry coming back to life. I really like Harry coming back. It teaches them the lesson that like not everyone can be saved, especially Harry without his memories. And then Warren dies, and again, this is another like person who's taken from this like disease. So then Peter and Scarlet Spider work together to make the cure, and this really nice time sequence, and then they test it and it works, and Peter's like, he feels so happy that it's done. We can see it, but we can also see how much he's hurting that he lost Gwen, he lost Ben, and he lost Warren, and he also kind of lost Harry again because he doesn't have his memories. So it's a really great sequence. And we see Peter getting Harry a house, and we see a news report of the fight, which is a nice sequence. And then we see Peter and Gwen talking again. And Peter's wearing the Midtown High shirt, which is obviously a fun Easter egg for those who know it. But when Gwen leaves, and it's such a powerful ending. And you can see how much Peter is like, he accepts that this is what he decides to do. And he accepts everything, and then it goes to the title card, which is such a great way to end it. And then we have an amazing credit sequence. It's really, yeah. And now we go into the post-credit scenes, which I want to talk about. The first one, we have Peter at Uncle Ben's grave, and then the symbiote lands. So that's a really cool one. We got to see Peter in the black suit, which you can say what you want, but we knew this was going to happen because in any of the photos you see of Spider-Man in the Spectacular Spider-Verse, which is between this and Power and Responsibility and Log Date 1, all of them are with Peter in the black suit. So it's kind of obvious that he was going to get the symbiote at the end of this because he's always in that like stunning black suit, but yeah. And I really like how it sets up a future. Like, it's a really like good way to do it. And they have another credit scene, which you can tell this one is, again, to set up a future project, Daredevil, and you can see Daredevil in a suit for the first time, and it's fun, and it's clearly made to set up a future project. It's not changing anything about the film, though. So that's everything I'm going to go scene by scene for. Now we're going to talk about 6 points again. So in my opinion, it's really directed very well and edited very well. Again, I really spoke a lot about the story and acting in this, but in my opinion, those are some of the this is what those are for, to talk about the performances in the story and how they go hand in hand. So what I really like about this is the mystery plot. Most Spider-Man fan films do not go this far to do a mystery, but they do it very well. They nail how it's supposed to feel very uncomfortable, how you're supposed to be on edge during it. And then you see them fighting each other and all of that thing, and how Peter loses everyone and loses trust, which is such a great plot for it. And that's one of the reasons I really love this fan film. So I don't have too much else to say, because I feel like I touched on everything in my initial review and going scene by scene in this. I really spoke about everything I want to say about this. Like, this fan film is very different, and when a fan film can make you feel emotions for the characters, that's when a fan film succeeds. So besides that, if you haven't already seen my official trailer for my own fan film, Spider-Man and Kingpin Time, you can see that on my channel now. Besides that, it's going to be Nightwing Rebirth, Spider-Man Prom Night, or Spider-Man in Quarantine for the next one of these. Comment down below which one you want. Besides that, thank you so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.